Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour, episode 143. I'm here with David from Four Corners of a Page. This is a conversation I've been looking forward to for a while. How you doing, man?
You've done 143 of these.
Well, I've done them. I've only uploaded a little bit less than that, but
Yeah.
yeah. How you doing?
Be honest with me. Be honest with me. Which one's your favorite?
Which one's my favorite? It's a good question.
I'll say hello
Um,
in a minute. Sorry.
uh, what's the one I watched the most? Because I generally don't like watching myself all that much because I'm always like, oh, it doesn't sound good, but whatever.
Yeah.
Let me think. Let me look actually on my YouTube, see if I can.
I'll say hello and introduce myself while you do that, if you like, because
Yeah, no,
I
you do
totally
that.
ignored your question, Britton. Hello, I'm David from Four Corners with a Page. If I look kind of egregiously sweaty, it's because I am. I ran out to the convenience store to buy a cup of coffee, and didn't realize the time and ran back. But I'm here and I'm delighted and excited. And I run a YouTube channel called Four Corners of the Page. And it's very interesting hearing you speak, Britton, because I have that same thing. Like watching, especially live streams. Like I really struggle to go back and go through a live stream because I just feel like I look at myself and I go, what are you doing? Like what are you why are you there? Get off people's screens. So it's not just you. I think we all have that kind of what's the word? Self-consciousness.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's a human thing. Yeah, I'll just say that. But yeah, as for my
Yeah.
favorite ones, it's funny because I've sometimes thought about if someone asked me that. A lot of the ones I tend to like the most over the years are the ones that that surprise me.
Yes.
Um, I mean, there are the ones I've had like AP Canavan on and Philip Chase, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm sure that's gonna be a good time. But like, there's other ones where I wasn't really sure what was gonna happen, and it turned into a much better conversation I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Those ones are
I
probably
feel
my
I
favorite.
feel that. I often think conversations are like teaching, because you can plan and plan and plan a conversation. You can watch previous interviews they've done and take a bunch of notes and kind of create these best set of bullet points for questions. And sometimes that goes well, and sometimes it's a disaster. And similarly with teaching, you can go in with the best lesson plan in the world and it can be a disaster. And conversely, inversely, whatever the word is, you can walk in with a wing and a prayer, and sometimes it can turn out to be the best chat or the best teaching moment that you've ever had in your life. So sometimes I think there's something to be said for the surprise in human interaction.
Yeah, I've not taught. But yeah, it's a good way to
The
put it
one,
actually. Um,
yeah.
I also like the ones I do or I've done, I should say. Uh, I'm thinking. I'm thinking of one in specific. Uh, I'll say my friend Raph Blue Text. I don't know if you've heard
Mhm.
of him.
I know of him.
Yeah. I enjoy our chats when I have him on because I have him on a lot. But our episodes I've done of this are very good. I've enjoyed them.
He seems like an extremely. I've never interacted with him, but he seems like an extremely kind of well-read guy. He got lots and lots and lots of text under his belt.
Oh yeah, he
Yeah.
definitely it's interesting. It's like I talk. I feel dwarfed when I talk with him because he just he'll think of things I hadn't even considered.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's good.
that
That's
yeah, that is good.
emancipating.
That is good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, he's a good guy. He's yeah. Sometimes I watch his videos. I'm like, God, how do you come up with that? But
Yeah.
that's neither here or there.
It's people who can make YouTube videos and just talk for like AP Canavans like this. Just talk for like 30 minutes, an hour, lecture style. No ums, no ahs, no edits. They just the intelligence just flows out of their mouth and then they hit stop. And I'm like, insanity. How do you do that? I have an every like 7 seconds that I have to keep track of.
It's kind of what Ref does. And there's people who say I do that. And I'm like, well, I have bullet points, so
Hmm.
You could probably see me looking at my screen to keep track of it, but you know.
Do you have any plans for conversation number 150? That's looming.
Yes, actually, I'm actually hoping to get Mike's book reviews on for that. So
Nice.
yeah, hopefully because I've been trying to get him on this show for a long time, and it just hasn't happened yet. It hasn't melded.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll be like, hey, I'm about to do 150th episode. Do you want to come on?
I mean,
So
Oklahoma and Texas aren't that far away. I reckon
this
if you
is
just yell very loudly, you'll get his attention.
yeah, it's just I can just walk over there and be like, hey, get over here. Yeah.
Talk to me about Oklahoma. I've never been to. I'm assuming some Okie dude. Oklahoma is the
Yeah,
state.
yeah.
I know nothing about Oklahoma, and please enlighten me.
Well, there's a lot of plains out here. If you
Yeah,
I mean, I live in the city, of course. So I'm a city rat.
Tulsa.
Um it's pretty quiet out here. I mean,
Yeah.
our basketball team just won the NBA championship. I don't really
Hmm.
like basketball, but it was a big deal out here. So, you also have a giant building called the Devon Building, so that's probably like our big attraction. And also like Woody Guthrie and
Oh,
a
I
bunch of
love
other
Woody Guthrie.
came from here.
Do you
Uh,
know? Not to make things political, because I'm not going to do that to you, but apparently Woody Guthrie wrote a big song about Trump's father, like because Trump's
I
father was a
heard
big
that.
landlord.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is just hilarious. No, I love Woody Guthrie. I'm a huge Bob Dylan fan. I love Bob Dylan. I went
Mm-hmm.
to see Bob Dylan 10 years. We're not going to talk about books, are we? I saw Bob Dylan 10 years ago at in Tokyo actually, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. Not because he did anything special. He basically stood and sang and said arigato and then walked away. But I'm so happy. Yeah, I'm so happy that I got to see him because I think spinning this into literature, I think his lyrics are poetry, and I think he was deserving of the Nobel Prize. And so I know that Woody Guthrie is one of the big formative influences on Bob Dylan,
It
as well as
was, yeah.
oh my God, Ramblin' Jack Elliott, the other one.
Yeah, if the legend goes right, he I think he went to New York City. He literally traveled by bus, went over there and saw him, and that's kind of how he got his start. Basically, him and Pete Seeger.
It's incredible when you listen to Dylan's. I mean, his first album, I think it's just called Bob Dylan. I could be wrong. Like 21, absolute baby face, big pudgy cheeks, very adorable. And that first album is fine, but then you get to his second
Isn't
album,
there a bunch of
and I don't know.
covers?
Yeah. Lots of covers. I think there's one or two. There's one song that he wrote that was just using the melody of a Woody Guthrie song, and he just put his own lyrics on it, and it's terrible. But you get to his second album, and suddenly Bob Dylan is just this blisteringly bright, shining, lyrical genius.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost a stereotype, right? Like younger white man looks up to Bob Dylan. Like you'll never find me around a campfire with a guitar. I don't go that far. But what he does on the page is just magnificent. And I think there's very few artists that you could read their song lyrics like poetry, and I think Dylan is one of them. And I adore him to pieces. I don't know if you're a music guy yourself, or
Oh, I enjoy music. I don't really get the chance to talk about it, unfortunately, that much.
now's the time.
You know, kind of to bring it back to books. One of the nonfiction books I would really love to read before too long is Chronicles by Bob Dylan, which is like his autobiography. Love to
Yes,
read that at some point, but you know, I just haven't found any time to do it. But yeah, I mean,
I
I
don't.
like some of Bob Dylan's songs. His voice can get a little, it can take some getting used to. I'll say that.
How does it feel?
Yeah.
Never choose a Bob Dylan song at karaoke. That's all I'll say. Um, and I know that from experience, painful experience.
But I've
I've
heard like,
single-handedly.
but I've heard like other people do it. I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's a genius.
Yeah,
Or I've read
yeah,
his lyrics, and I'll be like, this guy's a genius.
yeah. And again, it's kind of like a Stephen King thing in terms of quantity, like the amount of rich gold he was putting out in his 20s. Like you've got albums like Highway 61 Revisited, Blonde on Blonde, Bringing It All Back Home, Blood on the Tracks. All of these albums were put together in about like a 5-6 year window. It's amazingly, what's the word when someone can put out a lot? busy. I'll say busy because I've forgotten the word.
Prolific.
Crazy, prolific. I was going to say profligate, but that's not right.
Profligate.
Uh,
I like that. I like that. It's a good word.
yeah, I could talk about them all day. I find myself more and more entranced by singers whose words are rich, not necessarily um, deep and full of meaning, but layered. I think Dylan is a great example of that.
So, do you like Leonard Cohen?
Well, here's the thing. I like Leonard Cohen's. I've not dug deep into the discography of Leonard Cohen, but I've listened to his last 3 or 4 albums. So, Thanks for the Dance was posthumous. You Want It Darker, which is an incredible, incredible album, and the song was actually used in an Assassin's Creed trailer as well. And then I forget the other two that came before that, but old man Leonard Cohen, similar thing. Just incredible,
It's
incredible
more like
writing. And the thing about
spoken.
Leonard
Old
Cohen,
old Leonard Cohen's kind of like spoken word more than like actual
yes,
singing. But you know.
yes, and the thing about Leonard Cohen, he rarely uses a 3-syllable word.
Hmm.
Like You Want It Darker, or If I Didn't Have Your Love, or Treaty. He's got the song called Treaty. I've seen you change the water into wine. I've seen it change back to water too. I sit at your table every night. Um, I try, but I just don't get high with you. That's the start to that song. That's the first 4 lines. All 1 and 2 syllable words. And I challenge you to find a 4-syllable word in any of Leonard Cohen's work. And what he can do with that limitation of language, or that deliberate limitation of language, is sterling. So yeah.
Yeah, I kind of was listening to some Bob Dylan after I watched A Complete Unknown, which is the new Bob Dylan movie that came out
How
not
is
too
it?
long ago. It was pretty good. I thought Timothy Chalamet was a good choice to play Bob Dylan.
Yes.
Looked a lot like him, or at least he looked as much like him as he could. Um, but yeah, it was good. You know, it was I was like, wow, this dude wrote a lot of great songs.
Yeah. Do you like Tom Waits? He's the other one that he kind of completes my trifecta of like older white men.
I haven't listened to very much Tom Waits, but I've seen him in stuff like oh god, wasn't he Dead Man? I don't remember. He was in this Terry Gilliam movie called The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, which is
Okay.
pretty crazy movie, but Terry Gilliam, so that's a given. But he like plays the devil in that movie. he's
Of course he does.
he's like, yeah, and he like he smokes cigarettes and does his thing. Yeah, fun times.
He also was in the Ballad of Buster Scruggs,
Oh yeah, he
an
was.
epic
He
movie
was.
was
He
that the
was in
Coen
that
brothers
movie.
who did that. He was so if people don't know this movie, it's not even episodic. What's it called? When it's a bunch of different stories.
Anthology.
It's an anthology movie. I'm forgetting all my words. It's an anthology movie, and I think he's the 4th story, and he plays this old man gold digger out in the American West. Actually, it seems more like the Midwest
Mm-hmm.
potentially, but striking out for his fortune, and yeah, he's marvelous. I love him brilliantly. But you know what? There's other kind of younger artists as well that I really admire for the same reason. I think Fiona Apple is fabulous. I love the experimental nature of someone like Regina Spektor. I think the Killers have a lot of literary worth to their lyrics. But because they're a pop band and everyone likes to sing Mr. Brightside at 2 a.m., again at karaoke, they forget that actually Brandon Flowers is a brilliant lyricist. He's wonderful. And also Mr. Brightside.
Yeah, I've heard it at a couple karaoke bars I've been to. We'll say that. Um, yeah, I really like more like rock. I don't know if you listen to rap, but I think there's some good lyricists in that genre as well. Kendrick Lamar,
Absolutely, yeah.
particularly.
David Bowie's last album was inspired in part by Kendrick Lamar's stuff.
Yeah, I
So
like David Bowie, as well. I like some of his stuff. He's really out there at times, but I think that was kind of part of the charm, I guess. Is that
yeah,
he's really out there.
yeah, yeah. I think you're right. You're right to bring it to other genres such as rap, because There's also a thing. I mean, the whole thing when Kendrick won was it the Pulitzer Prize he won
Yeah, something
for
like
music?
that.
Yeah, and everyone kind of got a bit huffy because how dare a rap artist win this thing that is generally reserved for classical music, but
Well,
artists
to
are.
one, I'd ask,
Yeah,
had you listened to Pimp a Butterfly? Because if you hadn't, well, you should.
not all the way through. But if you want to give me homework, I'm more than happy to have some homework.
Well, To Pimp a Butterfly is an amazing album. Um, Probably his best one. Though my personal favorite is still Good Kid, Mad City. So
Hmm.
it's also more accessible, I think. But
If you write me a
that's
list,
never
I'll
scared you
listen
off
to
though.
it. If you write me a list, I'll listen to it dutifully because I always enjoy new music. It's hard. It's hard to kind of find, for me at least, to get into new artists. I tend to go for the old favorites that I'm very comfortable with. It's almost like a circle of friends. So I'm always delighted when an artist breaks into that clique that I've made for myself. So, absolutely.
Oh, did you repeat what you said? You were kind
Anyway,
of
those are my
skipping
thoughts
around a
on
little
that.
bit.
I briefly turned into a robot. I was just trying to. Anyway, no. I was just saying that I love when I discover a new artist because sometimes I find that my singers that I listen to, my bands that I listen to, it's a very closed circle, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean it to be. I just go back to the artists that I know I love, that I find resonance with. So it's nice to get a recommendation that breaks into that circle because I don't mean for my music tastes to be a clique, but it kind of is a clique at the same time.
We all have our favorites. I mean, I often revolve my stuff around like, uh, you know, Rush and old standards and rap music.
Yeah.
And also Kind of Blue when I'm feeling it, because um
But
big jazz guy.
I amazing. Yeah, I'd love to get into jazz.
Well, Kind of Blue.
Like, okay, this is from an outsider's perspective, so forgive me if this sounds silly, but when I listen to jazz, I find it difficult to sort of hook onto. I find it difficult to sort of understand what's going on. It kind of feels like listening to some kind of abstract art, and I
Yeah,
don't tend to get much out
I
of it.
get that. It's definitely not for everyone. It's a like you have to feel it, if that makes
Mm.
sense. Like it's like a sublime thing, if you will. Just like think of the like like I mean it's nighttime in Japan. Just like what I would do is like get like AirPods or something and walk around at night and like put on like Blue and Green or something and just like really you know that's how
If
I
you
do it
if you
anyway.
if you make me a list, I will attempt it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I understand that it can be kind of hard at times to get into jazz as a genre because
But sorry, finish your thought before I steamroll you.
I was just gonna say well I was just gonna say yeah I know it can be kind of hard sometimes. It's kind of funny. Um,
It's we all have these things though, don't we? That we are so passionate about. And nevertheless, when we try and share it with someone, it doesn't always work. So, for example, I'm just trying to think of an example. I love to travel, and I'm very, very fortunate and privileged, genuinely, that I can do that, especially
yeah,
with
you
my
moved
family.
from Kuwait to
Yeah,
Japan.
yeah. And I love that. I love that I've lived in a few countries and been able to travel to however many it's been, and do these adventures and show these adventures to my children as well. I went to Sri Lanka a year and a half ago with my kids, and it was wonderful. Hazel, my daughter, she was like 9 months old, and yeah, it was so amazing to kind of show her that. It's such a formative time when her brain is mush and becoming something. But here's the thing, though. I could go back to Scotland and I could sit in a pub or a coffee shop with a friend, and I could really try and explain the transcendent love I have of travel.
Mm-hmm.
And some friends would just be like, "I don't get it. I don't." And that's not me trying to invalidate that or call them lesser whatsoever. we just all have these passions that sometimes don't overlap. Malazan is another one. I know you just finished Gardens of the Moon, and I'm
I
sure we're going
did.
to
Yeah,
talk
I
about it.
finished it on Wednesday. Or no, I finished it 2 nights ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Malazan
Uh,
is another example that some people adore, and some people read it and give it a go and go, I don't get it. And again, I would never invalidate that either. Although I do hope to convert you.
yeah, I know it's yeah, it's interesting how that works. I mean, I'm um, I mean, I don't know if I'm the only reader in Oklahoma. That would be very. That's definitely not true, but I'm definitely one of the few readers in my group of people. You know, like my parents aren't big readers, though my dad reads a
Yeah.
lot of like religious literature and like self-help stuff when he feels like it. Like he really loves Atomic Habits. I don't know if you ever heard of that book.
Mm, yeah.
Um,
Oh, yes, yes, I have. Forgive me.
um, you know, my mom, she just kind of reads whatever. She just reads whatever she feels like reading. Um, yeah, it's always kind of funny. There's people who are like, "Oh, you're so well read for how young you are," and I'm like, I always get kind of flustered by that.
Mm.
And then I met Gavin, who's this like 15-year-old kid who's been interviewing like indie fantasy
Yeah.
authors, and I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, I get it now," you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not old or anything. I'm 24. I'll be 25 in March, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm just like, "Oh, I get it now," you know.
Mate, I'm 31, and the life expectancy of a Glaswegian is probably about 37. So you've got your whole life ahead of you, as far as I'm concerned. But no, I get that. I saw that. That I don't know him very well, Gavin. I don't know him at all, but I did see because he interviewed Adrian M. Gibson
Mm.
the same week that I did, and I think he did a bang up job of it. So yeah, my hats off to him. But it's that thing about comparison, isn't it? Where there's always someone who's slightly higher or slightly lower or
Yeah.
on a slightly different path. So I think there's also an extent to which you've got to just sort of shrug and do what you're doing.
Yeah, no, he's yeah, no, I actually had him on my show a few days ago. He's a good guy. I enjoyed talking to him. He's very smart. And I'm like, you have a bright future. He's like, thank you.
Yes.
Um, but yeah,
Remember us.
but yeah, no, going back to like niche passions. I mean, you know, I kind of that's kind of one of the reasons I started my BookTube channel because I'm like, well, here are these kind of like somewhat niche books that like nobody else talks about on BookTube. Well, I say nobody else. There are a couple people who've probably talked about some of the books I enjoy, but you know, I don't see a lot of people talking about. So I'm just gonna like put my hat into the ring and hopefully get people to read some of this stuff. You know, maybe we'll get like a Malazan type of thing because you know I was for so long people have been trying to get me to read it because you know it's weird because like a lot of people it's one of those series that people either love or hate, you know,
Yeah.
with like
Yeah.
exceptions of you know the weird people like me who are kind of like somewhat mixed overall. I've met some people who found it to be a mixed experience, so I don't know, but
There's so many things I want to talk to you about as you're talking. I'm like, there's about four different conversational avenues
it's like,
ahead of us.
oh,
Oh,
so what books are those, and what'd you think of Malazan? Yeah, no, give me a
yes,
second.
and
My
those
cat's
two are primacy. So let's do the first one first, because clearly you can read me very well, and you identified both of them. So the first thing is, do tell me those niche books, the reasons for which you started your channel.
Oh well, let me think. Well, for one, I think let me think because there's a couple. You know, well, I find maybe you can relate to this. I don't know, but I find there's like those like 10 fantasy series that like everybody talks about and everyone agrees is like, yeah, this is kind of the canon, if you will.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
and I was like, well, there's other fantasy too. You know, like I mean, I wouldn't call American Gods a niche book or anything. It's relatively popular. I mean, I won't get into the rabbit hole that is you know, recent events, but hey, stop
Why?
it.
Hi, cat. What's your cat's name?
This is the august Miss Jerry.
Hi,
She's
Miss Jerry.
she's she's like, I'm gonna just walk all she loves to rub her head on my mic for whatever reason. And I'm like, stop it. Better not do that. and then she'll
Yeah.
just do it. She's like, I'm like, okay, but anyway, um,
She's warning you against getting into the Neil Gaiman conversation, is what
yes,
she's doing.
exactly. She's like, I might not want to get into that right now. Um,
It's saving you.
um, Hilariously, I haven't actually done a video on it yet, even though that's my favorite fantasy novel of all time. Uh,
I love I love Sandman, and I've kind of vowed never to talk about it on my channel because of recent events, and it kills me because I think Sandman's of equal quality to something like Malazan, but I just can't bring myself to associate that positivity and praise on a public platform. But it's tricky. I don't think there's any right answers there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, I don't think American Gods is like a niche book. There's a lot of people who enjoy it. It's very
Mm.
beloved by certain people. Um, but I think a better example would be like China Mieville's Bezlag trilogy. Though I only really like the first two. I think the first two are brilliant books. The third one is kind of more. I don't want to say hard to get into because it's I could understand what was going on and all that, but
Mhm.
I could definitely see it alienating some people, and it's also I didn't love it as much as the other two.
So this is interesting because sorry to cut you off. I read, you just might be interested to hear that I read the first 25 pages of Pretty Street Station this week.
Oh, did
And
you?
put it down,
I think I saw. I,
not because I wasn't enjoying it, but just because I realized this was a project and something that deserved my full attention. So I put it back down. But I thought it was brilliant. I read the prologue in the first chapter with the lizard lady. Um, yeah, it was good fun. And the prologue had a very, speaking of all the controversial authors, the prologue had a very Cormac McCarthy style to it, which I did vibe with. So it seems like a very promising book to me.
yeah, like what's so funny about Cormac McCarthy is because like he's pretty popular. I think on the BookTube sphere. Like he's one of my favorite. Like he's one of my favorite authors of all time.
Me
And
too.
like I remember like Blood Meridian like blew up like a few years ago, and I was just like,
Yep.
whoa! It was right when I was coming on YouTube, and I was like, man! And it was like right around when he died, so it's just like, oh man! Like I came at the
Yeah.
right time.
Yeah.
Um,
So maybe you're the common link.
yeah, I know.
Neil Gaiman, Cormac
Yeah,
McCarthy.
I'm not going one for one, but I think I saw you talk about Perdido Street Station in one of your books. I'm like, it's a great book.
Yes, I think I saw that comment.
Um, yeah, I mean
It's something I want to read. It's something I brought it up as the book I want to read by the end of the year, and
uh
it really is up there. But it's just dedicating the time. I think it needs a proper like week of extended evenings reading this book,
yeah,
and
it's me with
not just sitting.
Pale Fire because I
Yeah,
shooting above my weight this year, and I'm like, I'm gonna read some of these like really dense, kind of. Well, not all of them are dense. I'm reading Discworld right now, and well, I started Discworld earlier this year, and now I'm reading Men at Arms, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is great. But yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna read A Brief History of Seven Killings, the first Gorman
hmm
Gas book, and Pale
hmm
Fire. So we'll see how that goes. I'm actually about to start A Brief History of Seven Killings, and hopefully I'll read Pale Fire before the end of the year. So we'll see how that goes.
Have you read Hitchhiker's Guide? If you like Discworld.
I do. I love Hitchhiker's Guide. That was kind of why I was
Mm.
hesitant to read Discworld at first. I'm like, oh man, like I don't know if you could reach like Douglas Adams level of greatness. And then I read
Yeah.
Guards. I'm like, all right, it's good. Like, yeah, the characters are great, and the setting of Ankh-Morpork's good and whatnot.
But
uh,
nevertheless, I still prefer Hitchhiker's Guide. I
yeah,
think
no,
it's
Hitchhiker's Guide's
yeah.
great. I love Hitchhiker's Guide. That's one. That's one. Not a lot of as many people talk about. Mike talk about it
Yes.
because he loves it. But
I love, so basically what happened for me, it's one of the formative books of my reading journey. Because when I was 7 years old or so, there was a TV show on, and it was something like, I was watching it with my mum, and it was like the top 25 books, top 25 British books. It was one of these kind of compendium listy channels or shows that come on late at night. And it was quite high budget because what they did was they actually did a sketch from each of the books. They performed, got like a set of actors to perform a little section of the book. And I was just watching this with my mum, and I was probably playing Game Boy or something at the time. But then Hitchhiker's Guide came on as number 7, 12, 24, whatever it was. And I remember clearly looking up at the TV and the sketch that they showed, and I've tried so hard to find it. I've never been able to find it. It's not the TV show. Was that the Deep Thought 42 extended sequence with Slarty Bartfast and the computer.
Hmm.
And I remember being utterly compelled by this scene. I'm like, this is so funny. And I couldn't. What I loved about it is that I couldn't explain why it was funny. The answer to life, the universe, and everything being 42. I just found it hilarious. And I didn't have the toolkit to break down why that's funny. Still probably don't. But my mum, being this brilliant woman who I make fun of on my own channel, but now that I'm on your channel, I can say nice things about her. She saw that and she bought me the book, and she bought me the I think it was CDs. I think it was the audio CDs.
Because like started out as like a radio show, if I recall correctly.
And so I listened to them every night for about a year and a half, just the first book. And the first book's short; it's like 5 hours long. So I had that book kind of right onto my brain, that and the Harry Potter books, if we're going to do the trifecta of controversial authors. But oh my goodness. What I loved about it, though, is although I could at one point basically narrate this book to you word for word, I was still uncovering the jokes, because obviously some of the jokes are pretty adult. And so every year I'd reread it. And even now I reread it and I go, oh, I missed that. And I don't find that I do that with Discworld as much as I do with Hitchhiker's books 1 through 3. I think there's a complexity of not to denigrate Terry Pratchett at all, who is again one of the best British authors. And you know what? I'm sure he was on that TV show as well. But something about Hitchhiker's Guide just really stuck with me and struck me, and I find it a very formative.
I feel so validated because I'm always like, Hitchhikers, and everyone's like, oh, Discworld, and I'm like, okay, I see the charm of Discworld. Yeah. But it's another one. Speaking of Brief History of 7 Killings by Marlon James, his fantasy trilogy, I think, is very underrated. I often tell people you should go read Black Leopard, Red Wolf, and I've had friends who really have enjoyed it, which was very nice, and I've had people who've bounced off of it, which I'm like, it's understandable. So, it's probably some other ones.
Have you ever done like a top 10 niche books video or something like that?
Yeah, I've thought about doing that, but I haven't made anything like that yet. I'm actually hoping to do a couple of top 10s. Like I'm hoping to do like top 10 fantasy characters and like maybe like top 10 like fantasy settings. We'll see how it goes.
I hear you talk about these books with passion, and obviously we overlap with a couple of them. I think that's the way to go. I think getting these recommendations out. I mean, we both know Shay. One thing I love that Shay started doing is he started recommending comic books, like really niche comic books. And I messaged him the other week and I said, like, I don't know if you're continuing the series, but you're recommending texts that I have legitimately, as someone who views himself as fairly well read, certainly next to the average bloke, I've never heard of these. Keep these coming, because it's a delight to discover.
Comics are a different language, really, than books, because it's kind of the marriage between image and text. At least sometimes there are some comics that are merely just the images telling the story. But yeah, I also appreciate that about Shay. I was like, oh, because like I feel like American comics are a bit underrepresented on BookTube.
Yes.
Manga is a big thing, which I can see why.
Yes.
Manga is can be a little more approachable at times, ironically enough. But yeah, I think there are comics that are just as like beautiful and just as like profound as any old regular book.
I was gonna say, I tell you what though, I don't vibe with anime. I like manga.
I don't really, there's some anime I like Cowboy Bebop's one of my favorite shows of all time, but I'm the same way. Like, I'm not an anime dude, really.
Do you hear this? Do you hear this? This is the sound of us clicking, Britton,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
yeah, I totally agree.
I
I
was about
like,
to say,
you know what
I
it
think
is
we're
with
gonna get
anime.
along
It's
famously.
I don't think it's anime. It's not the characters. It's not the plot. It's the pacing. It's the pacing of anime that I find really difficult to deal with. The fact that, and normally I get really annoyed if a text of whatever genre or medium goes too fast, but I often feel that anime is just glacial, like really, really slow to get to the point. And I found this because I used to watch anime as a form of Japanese study because my Japanese is atrocious. And so I thought I'd do like an episode of anime a day to help me get through that. And so I was watching, oh my goodness, Slam Dunk, which is an older but very popular basketball
I was about to say
sports
that's like a
manga
basketball
anime.
anime, isn't it? I've heard of this.
It's I adore the manga. I adore it. It's really funny, and I think people who watch Haikyuu and stuff like that, they should try Slam Dunk because it's fun. And I read like the first 20 volumes in Japanese, so there's also like a source of pride for me there. But the anime, I was just like, okay, we've got a whole episode, and in that episode, the characters are scoring 1 point, and it's just lots of people going, oh, oh, oh. And I'm just like, this is dreary. I'm, and I think when you're reading
I'm
manga,
more like
you
thrown
can
off
you
by
can
the
just flip
over the
through that.
top aspects of it. Like, there's a lot of like yelling and like really like
Yeah,
like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind like hammy acting from time to time, but it's like, oh man, like, I don't know, anime's such a weird thing, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to go into that rabbit hole, man. Well, with exceptions. There's
yeah,
some anime I've enjoyed, like Death Note. I enjoyed Death Note quite a bit.
yes.
Um,
But Death Note does that too with the pacing.
that's true. Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
definitely, there's definitely over the top moments in Death Note, and like, I was hesitant to do One Piece for a while, and then my friend was like, "You want to watch the live action adaptation?" I'm like, "Fine, sure, yeah, we could do that." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty good. I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would." So, but
Are you reading One Piece as well?
oh no, I haven't done that yet. I'm not planning to anytime soon. It's like, that's a big commitment. Even though I read
I
Berserk.
am right. Here's I could talk about Berserk for days. But I think the last thing I was going to say about this point is you can always tell with an anime when it's taking too long is when someone gets a facial reaction, they realize something, go, and then you get that same like 4 or 5 different times from different camera angles. That is the sign to me. That is the sign to me that the anime needs to just speed up a little
Too
bit.
much filler. Yeah.
But yeah, I loved reading Berserk. I got 100 chapters into One Piece, and I just people tell me it gets better after the 100th chapter. So maybe it's like what I'm going to tell you with Gardens of the Moon in a minute, which is keep going. But I stopped at the 100th chapter. I finished East Blue, and I had fun with it. It was good, but I'm just sitting here going, this is the thing. This is the thing that everyone has been like declaring their passion for so long. So, but you know what? I'm about to tell you, read Deadhouse Gates because you've not seen anything yet, and maybe there's a comparison there. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's funny. There's, let me think. Is there other things I've done that with? I don't know, cuz like generally when people tell me something's good and I read it, I'll generally be like, "Yeah, you know what? I see what they're saying." Um, but yeah, I finished you know what? I'll just get out my copy real quick while I'm thinking about it.
Talk to me. Talk to me about your reading experience of Gardens of the Moon. I'm not going to fight you or argue with you. I'm genuinely curious, mate, to hear your experience here.
Well, I mean, I didn't hate it, even though there were a lot of moments I was like, I'm thinking about chucking this freaking book across the room because it's not. And I mean, I have read Blood Meridian and Sutri,
Hmm.
so I'm not like, I'm like, I can, if I can deal with Cormac McCarthy, damn it, I can deal with anything at this point, is what I've learned.
Hmm.
With exceptions. I have a harder time with like, I don't know if you read, if I don't know how many like postmodern books you've read, but
A few.
I can struggle with those. Um, but yeah, Gardens of the Moon was a unique experience. Um, And it took me a long time to get into Malazan because I was like, I don't know, I don't really like to read a lot of like big series like that. And but what interested me, what finally kind of hooked me, what finally was like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna give this a try. I was curious to see, because Erickson isn't as impacted by J.R.R. Tolkien as many other fantasy authors of his ilk.
Mm.
Which I thought, that's interesting. Like, I will give him this. There wasn't really a character where I felt there was a trope. I'm sure there are tropey stuff like the soldiers and the adjunct, but like I never felt like they were like cliches.
Mm.
Now it's not the only thing I think is admirable about Gardens of the Moon. I liked the world building and scale of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like I'm hoping to write a review of it in the near future, so I won't go too deeply into it. But a lot of my frustration came from like, okay, who are these characters? Like, who are they? What do they want? And why should I care about this? There were maybe two characters that I thought, yeah, this is pretty good. Like Krupp. Krupp's great. I could read a whole book about
great.
Krupp. Like, just Steven Erickson, if you watch this, if you wrote a whole book about Krupp, I will read it in an instant because he's great. He's fantastic. I will chuck all the money at you to do that. But
here's the other one.
I thought is it Perrin? Perrin?
Yeah, Perrin. Yeah.
I thought he had a solid arc.
However you choose. Yeah.
I thought he had a very solid arc as he goes from kind of this conflicted spy to where he actually becomes a member of the Bridge Burners, which, kind of spoilery. I don't know. Does it matter? I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
But like, yeah, I remember I talked with you a little bit, and you're like, yeah, he does it a little differently than other people. But I'm just kind of like, okay, so when I won't pretend I'm an expert on this, but like generally when I read, and I get to like a character, I generally expect to know who are these characters, what do they want, and why should I care about it. And I don't know if I got a lot of that in like. There's a plot in Gardens of the Moon. There's some people who say like there's not like a plot or anything. Like there's a plot going on here. Like there's like a story, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. He makes you work for it.
He does.
I'm sorry if I just filibustered for like
anything...
10 minutes and and you're just like, oh man.
No. I'm genuinely fascinated by people's reactions to Malazan. And some of the Gardens of the Moon editions, first of all, I've been filibustering you for 45 minutes. So
that's true, yeah.
That whatsoever. Secondly, Erickson has in his own, one of the editions of Gardens of the Moon, he has an introduction that says something along the lines of, this is not going to be for everyone. That's okay. Enjoy if you like. So, like, I think he's also quite validating of people who don't, it doesn't stick with them. What I would say is a couple of things. Erickson wrote a really good essay a few years ago on character. I think I mentioned this to you when I saw your comment. Because he gets, I'm not saying you're saying this. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You're not saying this. But he's had this criticism about his characters and his construction of characters a few times. Stuff like Erickson can't write character. None of his characters feel real. None of his characters I care for. He got a bit cranky, I think, to be honest. Forgive me if he ever hears this. But he basically wrote this really long, beautiful, quite fiery essay about how he goes about his construction of character.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I was kind of hesitant, because I'm like, I kind of, I don't know. And he acknowledges this in the essay, because I did read it, because it's on his Facebook page.
You did.
And I found it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, whatever. And he's like, oh, well, if I couldn't, how about all these 10,000 readers who get sad at these characters? I just can't help but go, so? There's 10,000 other readers who don't like your characterization.
Yeah. And what we've got to do is we've got to line them up on two sides and give them all muskets and just see who comes out.
Start shooting each other. Yeah.
So like, I do understand what you're saying, because I'll be honest, and I haven't really spoken about this before. When I read Gardens of the Moon, for me, I had a slightly similar experience with the characters because I came from Song of Ice and Fire
Hmm.
and I came from The Dark Tower. And both of those series are just gorgeous in the way they construct their characters.
Yeah, I was about to say
So Song of
I
Ice and
do
Fire,
empathize with Malazan fans now that
yeah,
I've read Gardens of the Moon because as a Dark Tower fan, that first book can be
yeah.
kind of a hard sell for people.
You know what? I was just trying to get my sister to read The Dark Tower, and I said, "Listen, you have to commit to book two. You have to commit to book two because book two is one of the best fantasy books I've ever read. Full stop. And book one is a feverish dream of a book." But anyway, let me just cap this thing off on characters because I felt the same as you. As I gesticulate at you like this, like an old man. Um, I, and once I became aware of how Erickson is going about his character construction, what he's trying to do and what he's not trying to do, because he cannot paint 100 POVs and give them all a chapter to explore their internal feelings. Like it's just not possible. You'd have like a 10,000 page book per book. What he tends to do, and he tends to be very, very scrunched down, very economical with his prose, which is kind of funny because his series is so long. But he'll have characters later on in the series, if you do progress, that are on there for less than 2 pages, and you feel for them. Like there's a character in book 7 who I'm not going to mention. Throwaway character. He dies, right? He's there for 2 pages and he dies. It's not really a spoiler because he's there for a page and a half. So, when this character dies, you feel horrified because you feel like you have understood this man in about 250 words. Erickson, for me, is able to capture more in a page than most authors can in a chapter. I don't want to throw Brandon Sanderson under the bus, but sometimes I went from Malazan to Stormlight, and I really appreciate Stormlight, especially those first 3 books. But they kind of have an opposite approach, where Sanderson will take a chapter to make his point, and he'll write it well, and you'll be engaged. Erickson will do the same thing in a paragraph. So it's almost like when you read Malazan, you have to have a completely different shift of gears as to how he's doing character. Because I think what you're saying is valid. It is different. And if you can sort of get on board with what he's doing, you can find it rewarding. I'm trying to phrase that in a way that's not invalidating your reading experience,
Yeah,
but
no,
also kind of
it's
respecting what
interesting you
Eric's trying to
say
do.
that because I was kind of thinking like how some people are like, oh, he does all these things and wait till book 4, and I'm like, okay, there's Perdido Street Station, and he does all of what Erickson does, and even more than that. And you know how many books
Yeah.
that took? 1.
I think,
So it can be kind of
yes,
I'll try Dead House Gates. I definitely will, because I wasn't completely alienated from Gardens of the Moon, but yeah, I was kind of frustrated. I was frustrated with it, is what I'll say.
it's valid. It's valid. It's a frustrating wee book. Book 2, Dead House Gates. If I can give you a recommendation, Britton,
Mhm.
don't just try it. Get to the end if you possibly can. And I don't want to say to you, read 1,000 pages. But I think if you get to the end of book 2 of House of Chains, no, Dead House Gates, then you will understand what Erickson is doing, how he approaches story, and you should have a lot of moments of emotional catharsis, emotional resonance. If you're not feeling anything by the end of book 2, then he's probably not for you, and that's fine. So that's what I'd say there. And it's also a frustrating book 2. Don't get me wrong, there'll be moments that are similar to your experience with book 1, but book 2, in terms of how it, I would say, emotionally rewards the reader, that doesn't really exist in book 1. So you might find it a bit more successful in that
Yeah,
regard.
I actually watched because I tried to avoid as much commentary as I could about it because, well, I didn't want to be influenced too much during my reading of it. But last night, because I had finished it, I'm like,
Mhm.
you know what? I'm gonna watch AP Canavan and Philip Chase talk about it. So that's what I did, and it was really interesting. They actually illuminated some things that I didn't even catch. Like I didn't know the old woman was possessing Sorry till like they mentioned it, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't even notice that. I just
Yeah,
because I remember when I first read it, I'm
there's a
like,
lot of
okay,
good
this isn't that
layering.
hard.
Yeah,
And then like the magic puppet shows up, and you're like, oh my god, it's out of hand at this point.
I've been having that with R. Scott Baker. So I'm reading Aspect Emperor right now. I've just finished book 1. I'm keen to go into book 2. So this is book 5 of 7, I guess. And I'll have the same thing. And actually, it's with Philip again. And I know Philip kind of goes. He's a bit mixed on Baker, shall we say? Respectful, but also a bit drawn back. So I just finished Judging Eye, and I was listening to Joanna and Philip's thoughts on that book, and then also prior to that, the two of them plus Raph plus Jimmy Nuts, and they talk about these books. I'm like, oh my goodness, I thought I understood this thing. I thought I was getting the layers. It's like, I thought I was advancing,
knew
let's
I
say,
wasn't.
10 yards
I
into
knew I
analysis, and
wasn't
suddenly
getting.
there's 75 yards into analysis.
Oh, I knew I wasn't getting all the layers, because there were just moments in this book where I was like, I don't even know what the hell's even going on. I mean, I know like rationally what's going on, but I can't picture it. Like, there's a big battle at the end of this
Yeah.
book. I'll try and keep it vague here for people who haven't read Gardens of the Moon. But it's basically like, oh, this guy gets possessed, and then it just, there's dragons involved, and again, trying to be vague, and I'm failing. But yeah, I'm just like, okay, let's just move on from this.
Well, as a super duper Malazan fan, if I had to criticize one chunk of one of the books, I think the ending of book 10 is, sorry, the end of book 1 is a bit rushed. I think, and
Yeah, it's weird because
again,
like there's
Ericsson's my
this
favorite
guy
author of
who
all time.
shows up. He
He's my
wakes
favorite
up.
author, but I still think that ending should have had another polish, had another once through, just to kind of maybe make
Like
it a
there's
little
this
bit
character
more.
who wakes up, and this is like a big deal, by the way. Everyone's like, "Oh shit, this guy's coming. We're fucked," you know. And then there's like this big freaking anime battle, full circle on the anime thing, and then he just like
Yep.
blows up, and I'm just like, what the hell was that? And there's moments like that all over this book, by the way. Like there's this guy called like Talk the Younger, and he just gets slapped into like a warren and is like never heard from again. I'm just like, what the hell is that?
First of all, yeah.
What is that? You know.
So, yeah, the end of book 1 is, I think maybe the best word of putting it is a bit jagged. I think the POV switch comes a bit too fast, and so you don't stay with any character enough. And even now, like there are some characters that jump on in the 11th hour in Gardens of the Moon. I'm like, who are you? Why are you here? And then they're gone. It feels rushed is probably the wrong word, because I'm sure Erickson spent a lot of time on it, and I still think it's an amazing wee book. But if I had to criticize any chunk of the main 10, probably the ending of Gardens of the Moon, which I think is a little bit jaggedy. It's probably the way of putting it. But listen, Deadhouse Gates is a step up, a significant step up from book 1, which I mean, I'm saying this, I still think Gardens of the Moon is an incredible read. But I think if you get to the end of Deadhouse Gates once again and you're still not feeling it, that's a good time to step off.
Yeah, it's a unique read for sure. I'm not, yeah, and like people are like, oh, you know what it's about? Compassion. I'm just like, I didn't really get any of that. Like it's mentioned twice in this book that I saw anyway. Like particularly with Lorne, and I'm just like, again, it's like there are moments where Erickson like tries to make you feel for the characters, but I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't know how am I, you didn't give me the freaking context earlier. You're fucking making Facebook rants. I hate to say it, make it more obvious. I feel like a bad reader at this point, but so that's kind of why I found his essay on characterization kind of frustrating. It's like, well, maybe you shouldn't have written a fucking disjointed first book, before people, get mad at you. But, whatever. He even mentions in the essay, like, he knows people are probably going to get mad at him for the essay. But whatever.
I mean, it's a spiky wee essay. And I would agree with his logic, but I can understand if maybe it rankled you a little bit. It's still what it's.
I'll put it this way. I read it before I read the book, and then I read it after I finished Gardens of the Moon. It just kind of irritated me. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
I'd be so curious to hear your thoughts on book 2. And you know what? I'm an absolute hypocrite because I've been making fun of Empire of Silence for about 3 months now on my channel. And everyone tells me, listen, when you get to Howling Dark, you're going to have a radical about-face change. And I don't disagree with them. I mean, I know Tori Tekken had a slightly lukewarm experience with Howling Dark, but it seems like for most people, Howling Dark is an incredible book. And nevertheless, I'm sitting here having finished book one, pontificating that I am the objective holder of truth, which is not true. So I'm a hypocrite here, and same with One Piece. I got 100 chapters in, which is about a tenth of the story, is my understanding so far,
Hey,
maybe
we all
slightly
have those
less.
books, man. Like, I mean, I know Black Leopard, Red Wolf isn't for everybody, but I for some reason I love it,
Yeah,
which I recommend. By the way, it's a great book. But I'm like, oh, you think Malazan's hard? I
it's
think
Gene
Black
Wolfe
Leopard.
who seems to be the granddaddy.
Yeah, no, I've bounced off of Gene Wolfe. I've read, oh god, how many of his books? I think I've read 2 of them now, and I've bounced off of him twice. And I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't know if he's for me. Sorry,
Yeah.
Sam, if you watch this. My friend.
He said to me, so he won't me saying this, Samwise. He was like, "Listen, David, I hope you continue with Howling Dark. I think you'll find it to be amazing, but please promise me you'll still read Gene Wolfe as well." I said, "Yes, Sam, I promise." Because yeah, he loves that series to death, and it sounds like it's something I'd like. But the one series that I stuck with for way too long is Wheel of Time. I got to about book 11 of Wheel of Time,
I've never felt the itch to
and
read Wheel of Time. I'm just like, dude, like,
it's
what is this?
it's. Do you know what? I think if I'd read it earlier, prior to a lot of these series, that this is not right. This is going to sound like I'm being condescending, like, oh, it's because I've come so far in my reading journey that now it doesn't mean anything to me. No, I don't want to praise it like that, because it's it's not that. But I think because I read stuff that deconstructs traditional fantasy a little bit, if I can put it like that. Even that's unfair, because there's some traditional fantasy I really like. I really like Way of Adan, for example, which is definitely steeped in tradition. But I think I read it the wrong way. I think I should have had an appreciation of what Jordan was doing, just like Tolkien, before
That's why I
I'd
haven't read it,
read the
because I
stuff
don't
that
know if I would
responded to
appreciate
it
it.
first.
Oh,
Well, I know,
sorry.
for example, Daniel Green like adores it, and his favorite series of all time. And but he also is very upfront, saying he read it at a formative time in his life. So I'm like, maybe it's that. Maybe it's certain windows of our life we read certain things, and the two things stick together, and that's why we enjoy it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, I have a deep soft spot for A Song of Ice and Fire, cuz I that
Mhm.
was a very formative read for me. I would say
Do
there
you-
are probably better fantasy out there, definitely ones that have, I think are more unique and powerful than A Song of Ice and Fire, but I still really love A Song of Ice and Fire. I still think a lot of the themes and the characters in those books, they still resonate with me, even all these years later.
I feel like it's getting a bit of a renaissance. Sorry, I didn't mean to. What
Is
were you
it?
going to say?
Because like Game of Thrones kind
Yeah.
of dampened it a little bit.
Well, yeah. Okay. So the Game of Thrones like madness of, but we forget how long ago that was now. When did the finale for Game of Thrones come out?
I think it was
2020,
2019, 2019.
2018,
Yeah.
2019. Half a decade has passed since that show ended, and I feel like people now who missed that whirlwind are now beginning to pick up those first 5 books, or are now beginning to reread those 5 books, and realizing that they still stand, and they're still quality. I've only read them once, and I read them, mate, 2011. I think I read Game of Thrones 2012. So I feel almost like it's been so long, I'm no longer qualified to talk about it. But
That was another thing with like, I'm
I've
sorry.
noticed a few people doing rereads. Say again?
Oh, I was gonna let you finish your thought, and then I was gonna go talk about Gardens of the Moon again.
No,
But
I'll go. I was just going to say, I feel like people are beginning to explore that series a bit more, and that could be because of various things, like the other shows that are coming out and are being quite positive, or just the dust has now settled and people can just read Song of Ice and Fire because of Song of Ice and Fire, and not because of the show attachment and disappointment. What were you going to say?
what I was gonna say is like it was kind of interesting reading this, because I've heard some people compare Erickson and Martin, and I'm just like, I don't see it, because
No.
I think their styles are very different, but also it's like, with Martin, like, sure, there are a lot of POVs, but it's mostly like coherent. Like, book one of A Song of Ice and Fire is still a very contained story, even though it takes place on different continents. I find with Gardens of the
Yes.
Moon, it's like, okay, now it's like, okay, Perrin, you gotta go spy on the bridge burners. It's like, okay, and then it like goes to another continent, and you're like, okay, what the hell is this? Here's this Krupp guy, and Krupp's great, but you're just kind of like, it does connect. I will say that it does connect, but it just kind of, I don't know, felt more scattered to me. Which maybe it was supposed
I would
to.
kind
I
of
don't
disagree
know.
with that. I would disagree with that because I think one thing that Gardens of the Moon does really well is it corrals everything into basically one or two cities. I think that does solve some of the um, difficulty of understanding what's going on by the fact that by the end of the book, you're pretty much exclusively in Darujistan. So, so
That's a
what you're
good
going to find,
point.
I don't know
Yeah,
if you know anything about. I don't know if you know anything about book two. Can I tell you? Can I tell you one thing
I
about
just
book
know
two?
like
It's
a
not a
bunch of
spoiler.
people get like, I know a lot of people say it's better than Guards of the Moon in that it's like a massive gut punch. So
Yes, but one thing that I was thinking you should probably be aware of is that it's set on a new continent with entirely different characters.
yeah, I've been told that.
You know that, yeah? Yeah. So you have maybe two or three characters from the end of Gardens who come over, and they get on a boat basically, and they're kind of the through line there.
Yeah,
But
my
it's
friend told me he's
97%
like, yeah, you're not gonna see Krupp
new
for a
characters.
while. I'm like, damn it, he's such a good
Yeah, yeah.
character.
Krupp's on a wee dance, but you are going to get a character called Iscarol Pust who is just.
Oh boy, it's good. It's good. Pause right there. Or oh, sorry,
It's
you went robot again
yeah.
for a minute.
No, it's okay. I was going to say you're going to meet a new character who is as entertaining, shall we say, as Girl Past. I know we're dancing around in circles now a little bit, but I think you're going to land on book two. Would be my guess. You might not love it. It might not be 5 stars, but I think you are going to have a better time with it than you did with Gardens of the Moon.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I mean, I knew Gardens of the Moon wasn't gonna be like a traditional experience, and I'm like, oh, I love non-traditional. I like to challenge myself, believe it or not. If you didn't
Yeah.
gather that already, I like to challenge myself as a reader. You know, I'll read like a experimental book for fun from time to time. But man, like Gardens of the Moon, I was just kind of like, God, am I as good as a reader as I think I am? I don't know. I don't know.
And then you read Finnegan's Wake and you realize that you're fine.
Yeah, I've not dared touch Finnegan's Wake.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some people who's like, oh, he does things. Here's I'm gonna poke the Malazan bear a little bit, but one thing that always kind of annoys me a little bit, even from people who I love, who are big Malazan fans, are like, well, you see, Erickson does things that you would commonly see in literary fiction and not fantasy, and I'm just like, oh my god, get out of here with that.
But it is true. It is true, but I understand why it comes across as a bit smug.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kind of like, bro, like, I was like, okay.
Well, let me
Fine.
give you one example of something that I think is done really well in Gardens of the Moon. That you talked about some of the
I'm like,
characters
you
not
should
being
read
tropey.
Black Leopard Red Wolf and then come back to me. But whatever. I'm not gonna.
What's that book called? Black Blood, Red Wolf.
Here, hold on. I'll pull out my copy.
Give it to me.
Is this puppy Black Leopard Red Wolf by
Black Leopard.
yeah. Now there's an actual black leopard, so it's not a. There's no lying in the title. It's a guy who turns into a leopard. But anyway. The Red Wolf is the main character, by the way, because he has a. It's not a spoiler, by the way. It's explained in like the first like couple pages of the book. But yeah, he has a wolf's eye that he has on loan. But anyway, yeah, great book.
On loan from the library.
I think you know what? Ever since I've read Malazan, I've talked with Malazan fans. I'm like, you know what? You guys should really try Black Leopard Red Wolf. I won't guarantee that you'll like it, but it's definitely a it's much nastier than it's much more visceral and nasty than Gardens of the Moon, because like I don't think like when I think of Gardens of the Moon, I was thinking more of like Elric. I don't know if you ever read Elric or anything of the Eternal Champion, but it's like kind of gothic and weird. This is a little more like I don't want to say it's like Joe Abercrombie, because it's not, but it's basically like if you think Joe Abercrombie's grimdark, this cranks it up to 11. So yeah, just warn you, there's a lot of graphic content.
I'm halfway through R. Scott Baker right now, so nothing can touch me.
Fair enough.
Mental,
I haven't read R.
Have
Scott
you read any
Baker,
Baker?
but I've heard he's very bleak, and this gets pretty bleak at points. So
So I sometimes, so it's interesting with the Malazan discussion. People say, I think Joanna said this to me, that we often sometimes get bogged down in the difficulty discussion. And I just had an amazing discussion on Malazan difficulty with Alex and Shay and Philip. And unfortunately, Joanna couldn't make it. But at
Mike,
the same
didn't you make a
time,
video
like
with Joanna about complicated books?
the difficulty.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's phenomenal. But my point is that often with Malazan, we think of difficulty, and sometimes that's at the expense of other stuff. But at the same time, it's the same thing with Baker. Sometimes I think we talk about the grim, bleak tone of Baker and the hyper violence and all that stuff of Baker, and that sometimes eclipses some of the most like incredible things that he's doing. So I understand what you're saying about kind of going back to Black Leopard, Red Wolf, which sounds like a thriller title. It sounds like a Tom Clancy book.
No, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other book's called
But so yeah, I'm
Spider
intrigued.
King.
I will read it.
Like, what's that? No.
Yeah.
Which
going back to Gardens of the Moon, and this is the last thing I'll say on it, but I think it gives you an example of why I think Malazan is actually very clever, even though Gardens of the Moon is probably Erikson's weakest Malazan novel. Weakest is very, still brilliant in my opinion. But Crocus, right? The character of Crocus, I find very, very interesting and enjoyable.
He was a fun character. You said I liked. It was weird. There were characters I liked. Like Whiskey Jack. I'm like, yeah, he's fun. I enjoy him. Or Crocus. I'm like, yeah, Crocus is fun. I actually, he was one of the characters I actually kind of felt for, because I'm like, I could see a lot of myself in Crocus, even though I'm not really I'm not a thief getting caught up in this cosmic game.
You're young. Well, here's the thing about Crocus, though. And this is one kind of hint of why I love these books so much. Crocus is almost like an Aladdin figure, right? He's scurrying on the rooftops. He's kind of wisecracking
he is.
a little bit.
That's a good comparison.
And so but what I love, what Erikson does with Crocus is this is slightly spoilery, but he basically paints Crocus initially as this like scampy Aladdin. And Crocus's arc through this book is he goes into like a certain mansion estate to steal stuff, and he stumbles into the bedroom and he's stealing the jewelry of this beautiful young woman, and then he turns around and he realizes that she's there, and he falls in love with her. And so the whole arc,
I thought that was Sorry. Was that Sorry, or was that actually that rich lady?
No, this is Chalice. This is Chalice. And so a young man reading this book, I'm not talking about yourself, I'm talking about like myself, age 16, would read that like almost like a romantasy, or like, oh, he's gonna get the girl, and class does not divide them, and circumstances do not divide them. If love is true, then love conquers all of those things. Do you know what I mean? Almost like Titanic, right? Like Rose and Jack.
Yeah.
Like, love transcends these boundaries.
Like,
And then you start thinking about it, and you're like, this man is creepy. Like, what's actually happened here is that Crocus has gone into a young girl's bedroom, stared at her while sleeping, kind of claimed ownership of her. Like it's not reciprocal, it's not mutual. He's just like, I love you now, and I'll be back. And then he swans off. Like that, like what are you doing? Like terrifying. But I feel like Erikson is slowly revealing that to you with the character of Crocus. Without spoiling what happens at the end, that actually this is not a kind of a Prince Ali. No, it's like you are a creep, you're a stalker. Cut it out. And I love that there's often that kind of dual, and this is what I'm talking about with Erikson and character. Often you can see a character as quite simplistic, and then you start to scratch it, and you realize that there's lots of stuff kind of hidden under the surface there. And I think Crocus is a really good example, quite early on in the series, of how we initially view them one way, but actually they're quite layered. And this is what I kind of meant earlier about deconstructing our initial impulses and how we view the world. That's my soapbox.
Fair enough. I mean, it's weird. And like I think Sorry gets involved. I'm just like, oh, that poor bastard.
Yeah.
Well, that poor.
Well, that's another one, right? That's like Sorry, being this this cool ghost ninja girl, kind of like this assassin ninja, like preteen who kind of runs around and gets whatever you want to call it,
I do find it
the
kind of
victory
hilarious
over
that
everyone
like
else.
she's so like cold blooded. Like even the other these hardened soldiers are frightened of her. I always thought that was kind
Yeah,
of funny. They're like, that girl, there's something wrong with her, you know?
yeah, like very obviously. But like she's a victim. Like she's the victim of basically assault. Like it's like it's a form of rape in a way, isn't it? What happens to Sori at the start of this novel, and it's interesting. I don't want to spoil anything if you do continue, but as the series goes on, there is a bit of reflection on how traumatic this must have been for her, even though
There's a little bit of
I don't
that
want
in
to
this
spoil
book
anything.
too. It's like, damn. But it's
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah. But again, that cool idea of like the possessed assassin ninja, and then actually you scratch the surface and there's lots to talk about. It's the reason I love Malazan. There's lots to talk about, and not every series has to be lots to talk about. Some things are just fun. Like Dungeon Crawler Carl is really fun. Dresden
I've
is
not
really
read
fun.
that. I've not read
But
that yet either. I'm like, I haven't read a lot of. I haven't read the Sun Eater books. I haven't read frickin' Book of the New Sun yet. I haven't read
yeah,
what's that other popular Dungeon Crawler Carl. I haven't read that one yet.
yeah. Dungeon Crawler Carl is really good. It's really fun.
I've heard it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm like, heard the audiobooks of that are just impeccable.
Incredible, incredible. And there's a kind of a Trojan horse element to Dungeon Crawler Carl. It balloons in complexity and character. So I would say that book one is just fun. It's just straight up leveling up. Hey, you know what I mean? We're killing goblins or whatever they are. And
Hmm.
by the time you get to book seven, suddenly you have this like severe attachment to these characters,
Mm.
and their interactions are actually quite complex. So it ebbs and flows, but certainly Dungeon Crawler Carl there is an increase in what could you call it, conversational ability to that series.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I don't know anything about this. Well, that's not true. I know a little bit. I know, I know what I've heard, basically. Kind of like with Malazan for so long, but people are like, oh man, like, oh, Malazan. I was like, oh yeah, okay. It was kind of funny because I was kind of like, okay, this isn't that difficult. I could follow it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think overwhelming's the good word for it. I would use is kind of, oh, you're just overwhelmed by the scope of everything. You're like, okay, there's these gods running around, and
That's fair.
there's all these characters running around. What are they doing?
Do you game at all?
Yeah, I haven't done it in a while, but yes, I have gamed. Yes.
So I'm talking about video games, not tabletop. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yes.
yeah. So it's interesting because a lot of people draw comparisons to like From Software, and I know Chance Dillon has compared his work to both From Software, Dark Souls, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
and Malazan. That kind of thing where the first time you go through it, and you're kind of scratching your head a little bit, and so the parallel is always made to something like Dark Souls. I was wondering how you feel about those games, if you played them.
Oh, I've played them. I don't have the patience for for the Dark Soul games, but I love the aesthetic of them. Like I love the design of the Dark
Mm,
Soul type of games. I like Bloodborne. I love the design of that game. Um,
yes, totally agree.
I'm just kind of irritated with Funnily enough, kind of like Malazan in that way. It's almost like you're running around, kind of looking for the story, and you're just kind of
Exactly.
like here's another thing. What's the frickin'? I mean, there's a plot in this, so I'm not gonna try and But like, what's the main frickin' plot of this aside from the Malazan Empire's taken over and this assassin lady is the Empress now, which by the way isn't a spoiler. It's in the first couple pages of this book, but it's like, okay, is there like, and then one of my friends is like, well, there's a scene with Krupp and the scholar guy. His name's Mamet, I think. And like
Mm.
it kind of outlines the whole series. I'm like, that's wonderful. I didn't get it. But anyway, it's kind
I
of like that
mean,
with Dark Souls. Kind of
there is
cutting
a
back to the Dark Souls thing. I'm kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of
yeah. I feel like with Malazan, again, maybe to quibble with you here a little bit, each book is relatively self-contained, and they do paint this bigger tapestry. But at the same time, I would say you articulated it quite well. Like the plot is the Malazan conquest or attempted conquest of Darujistan,
mm-hmm,
and how they go about it. Like that's the big overarching plot, and then
mm-hmm.
you have a number of stories within there. No, I was talking about Malazan with another friend last week, and they were telling me the thing that kind of slightly frustrates them with Malazan is the slight kind of slice of life element to it. That there's so much sort of almost stuff that doesn't actually build into the overall bigger picture, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So, and again, I don't want to disagree, but it seems like there's lots of stuff that doesn't really go
Yeah,
anywhere
there is a lot
from
of
Malazan.
characters hanging out, especially in
Yes.
Duristan. I think that's how you pronounce it, where like, Krupp and Murillo and Crocus kind of sit around and drink. Very like
Yeah.
Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, actually, which I know Erickson really likes Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser.
Really. So, I don't disagree with it. I think that there's two things. I think first of all, it's obviously this is going to sound really patronizing. It's book one. Like there are things that are going to be picked up later.
Yeah,
There's
I know.
something in his new novel.
I'm trying to cut Erickson some grace here because I'm like, look, I get it's a book one of a freaking massive 10-book series, but
Yeah. I so there's that element to it. There's the new book that's coming out this year is dealing with a character that we last saw, like, don't know when that book that I'm referring to was published, but I want to say maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that element to it. But also I kind of view the slice of life stuff as thematic more than plot driven. A lot of it is kind of hitting the same emotional and
Yeah, it's funny.
thematic beats. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'll let you finish your thought and then I'll.
No, I'm done. On you go.
Oh, okay. I was gonna just go like I remember I read a comment from a friend of mine. Well, an acquaintance, we'll say. His name, or maybe you've heard of him. His name's Jerome. He's on.
I haven't heard of Jerome.
No.
I'll be
Oh,
friends with you, Jerome.
yeah. He's good. He's a good guy. I enjoy him. But yeah, I remember he
Yeah.
commented because I had a friend of mine who quit Gardens of the Moon, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I get
Mhm.
why. And he's like, oh well, it's not really like plot over character. It's actually theme over whatever. It was about theme. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And I'm like, I'm a big theme guy. I love that stuff. I not all of my favorite books are theme driven, but a lot of them are. I
Mhm.
didn't really know what the themes of Gardens of the Moon were. Like what is he saying? Now, later on, I will admit I did watch like the Philip Chase and AP Canavan and some other people talk about it, and I did kind of appreciate that a little more. So I'll give them credit for that. So shout out to Philip and AP if they watch this. Probably not, but
Yeah. I think I had a conversation on this actually last night with, do you know Nostalgic Dragon, that channel? Frikant.
it's
He's great. He's
I'm
Britain. He's great. He lives in Sweden, and he has these really great videos on Sun Eater and Malazan and spirituality. Shout out to him.
I'll have
Anyway,
to
we talked
find
about
him,
Gardens of
but
the
I've
Moon,
not
and
heard. It doesn't ring a bell at the moment.
so there's the critical dragon of AP, and there's the nostalgic dragon of Frikant.
Hmm.
Anyway, so what he does, or sorry, what we talked about last night are the lenses through which you can approach Gardens of the Moon. And there's actually, again, when you start to scratch it, there's quite a few things you can talk about. And I would kind of agree with you that Gardens of the Moon is the least thematically complex of the
Or
10.
at least
And
I should
certainly,
say, it doesn't. I hate to say this because again, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's not easy" or whatever. But like, if he made it easier, I would have, maybe connected with it a little more. I don't know, but continue your thought.
well, I'm going to say a few things, like just to bring up echoes of that conversation. You have so much about family here. Like who is a family? What counts as family? Um, Again, lots of religious kind of theological aspects being tied to the idea of family. You have a lot of stuff on justice. Like, are we allowed to, at what point, or even maybe not even just justice, but conquering? Like, the whole premise of Gardens of the Moon is that this empire is trying to conquer this city. Why? Kind of because they want to. And meanwhile, at the start of the novel, Pale has just been conquered. Uh, the bridge burners have themselves just been kind of conquered by kind of machinations behind the scenes. This isn't spoilers. This is like the first 25,
Yeah, I
30
was about to
pages.
say, yeah, this isn't
Um,
spoilers.
the character of Sorry has been conquered by the shadow gods right at the start. There's lots of people claiming ownership of certain things in one another. You have these societies and cultures from millennia ago who we're trying to conquer and be tyrants of one another, and the repercussions of that bleeding down through the ages. You've got the weight of history. That's another huge one in Malazan. All this stuff happening thousands of years ago that is still kind of chewing and bubbling at the world today. If you start to talk about it, I think you can find a lot of stuff to talk about with Malazan. But I would agree with you that Gardens of the Moon, of all the 10, probably there is the least. Like, if I could just monologue forever until if I could genuinely filibuster about each of the 10 books until I just run out of steam, I would probably speak for a long time about Gardens of the Moon. But at the same time, it would probably be the least I would talk about. So
yeah, like I heard there was like theme of duty, and I'm like, oh, okay, I could kind of see that a little bit with like Perrin and Lorne. But again, it just like, I don't know, just left me cold. There were some decisions that I won't, I won't be so arrogant to be like this is bad, but I will say it did leave me a little cold at points.
Ericsson's gonna listen to this discussion, and he's gonna be so annoyed at you that he's gonna make a time machine. He's gonna make a time machine. He's gonna go back 5 years. He's gonna write an essay on character, and then the whole thing comes full circle because you were the locus of this conversation, of that essay. No, not really. Listen, your interpretations are your own. And what I'd never want to do, listen, there's two different kinds of disagreement, right? There's disagreements with people who have clearly not read the book or skimmed it and then have decided to give their judgment. And then there's people who have genuinely tried the book, read it, given it thought and attention, and have not enjoyed it. And you seem to me very much of the kind of person who's the second one. You have given it the time of day, and your thoughts are your own. So I'd never want to be like, you're wrong. I think we sometimes forget those two things are different, and I think sometimes when people read our favorite series and they don't like it, we get our hackles up and go, oh, you just didn't understand it. And I do think there's more to Gardens of the Moon than perhaps you would realize on a first reading, because perhaps for me as well, my first reading, there was stuff I wasn't picking up on. But at the same time, you clearly have given it the time of day.
Again, I was listening to some commentary and they're like, oh, that old lady? She was actually possessing Sari at first. I'm like, how did I not see this?
Yeah. Well, of course you didn't see it, because you're trying to work out what...
I thought she was just like, you get over here. I thought she was just being a cranky old lady.
Yeah.
And then again, they did the whole like, wait till book 5, because like, man, this lady becomes real important. I'm like, God damn, I don't give a fuck. But anyway.
But all I'd say to that is like, listen, in the first 20 pages, you're like, what is a warren? Okay, the gods are on the earth. Like, you feel so disjointed at the beginning.
Yeah.
That it's understandable you wouldn't pick up on the nuance, because you're still trying to work out literally where you are.
And then it's kind of funny. AP Canavan made the point. It's like, well, this big cataclysmic event happened, so it kind of disrupts the narrative. Oh, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even pick that up. You're so smart, AP. Yeah. If you ever watch this.
I didn't realize that he'd said that, because I'd had that point in my notes and I thought I was very clever by saying that, but apparently it's already been taken. So I guess there goes that video idea. Thanks, AP, for being first. But yeah, I did notice that too as well. That it's again that jagged quality. It's there in the beginning, but it feels a bit more intentional. I think the ending does go a wee bit too fast for my liking, but I still think it's from my perspective a really marvelous book that does suffer first book syndrome a little bit.
There's also a lot more ham than I expected, if you know what I mean. Like, there's a lot of like hammy like moments, like when the
awaken the seven within me.
Yeah, like the Jagged wakes up and is just straight up like anime supervillain monologue where he's like, my hounds come to me, raw, and I'm just like, what? Also, Animander Rake at times, I'm like, what? I thought this was supposed to... I mean, I know, like, look, I get fantasy's supposed to be fun, but, like, I thought this was going to be, like, a serious thing.
No, later on, there's dinosaurs with swords for hands.
Yeah, I've heard this, yeah.
Yeah. But I think in the community, there's a saying called Gardens of the Moonism, which is to signify something in Gardens of the Moon that doesn't quite match up with books 2 through 10. But because I think you wrote it a bit earlier. But have you seen, just to pivot slightly, have you seen the machines that Ericsson wrote these texts on? Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's not.
So he basically wrote Deadhouse Gates on a BlackBerry. It's not a BlackBerry, but it's like a very small portable computer.
Oh.
He'd be working. He'd go on his lunch break. He'd open up his like mobile phone sized laptop, just a word processor, and he would write these novels, with something that was literally smaller than the book. It's worth looking up. He has shared on his Facebook page the computers that he wrote books, I believe 1, 2, 3 on, and it is phenomenal. So
Huh. I'll have to
listen,
find that.
I'm happy kind of agreeing to disagree on Gardens of the Moon. I love it. I also understand why it throws a lot of people off, and maybe it isn't for them. But just to say it for like the sixth time, I do think you will enjoy Deadhouse Gates more than you enjoyed Gardens of the Moon.
Yeah, it's an interesting read. It was funny. I went back. I was reading Men at Arms, and it was like, this. I feel so much better now. I don't want to sound like I disliked Gardens of the Moon. It's very polarizing. I think polarized is the best way I'd describe my reaction to it, which is fair.
Yeah, like
I
you
know
seem
a
to
lot
have
of
very
people are
strong
like that.
yeah, very strong and very negative reactions all at once.
Because there was also a lot of like, what is like now, I mean, I'm not, funnily enough, even though I love fantasy, not much of like, I don't really like, if you never explain how the magic works, like, I don't care, like, that's fine, like, you don't have to explain how the magic works. Now there are some books like, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, or Perdido Street Station, which I brought up earlier, that kind of play with that concept of like trying to scientifically understand how magic works. I think that could be really interesting. But like, I don't generally like the kind of info dumpy, this is how this works,
Yes.
And thankfully Erickson doesn't do that, though it's kind of a double-edged sword at times, I think. Because again, he kind of just throws you in without a life raft, and you're just kind of like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Do you read much sci-fi?
Oh yeah, it's
Are you a sci-fi guy?
Mm.
What are the favorites there?
I actually was talking about my 4 favorites the other day, so I put on The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. I think that's
Hang on. Keep talking.
Hitchhiker's Guide, obviously. We were talking about that earlier. A Scanner Darkly by Philip K. Dick. Big fan of Philip K. Dick. Born by Jeff Vandermeer. Also the Southern Reach trilogy as well. Oh, that's a nice copy. It
cost me way too much money. It cost me 5,929 yen.
Holy shit! How much money is that?
Which is about probably about $30 or something like that.
Oh.
So it was a nice copy. But I've always wanted to read Ray Bradbury, and so when you mentioned the Martian Chronicles, Ray Bradbury has been breaking my TBR. Genuinely.
He's great, isn't he? He's amazing.
He's so good. I'm gonna have to make a video on the fact that he's breaking my TBR. I've been doing one of these a night, but the reality is I've been doing 3 or 4 a night. Like I've been staying up till, I'm speaking way too fast. I've been staying up till like 2 or 3 in the morning just reading, and I've got children, so they all wake up at 5 and 6. So I've been destroying my body by reading copious Ray Bradbury short stories. He's such a good writer, and he's not stuffy. He's fun to read. Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely is that. Everyone loves Fahrenheit 451, and it is a good book. I do enjoy it. I just like Martian Chronicles more. It just resonated with me more, even though it's like less, I guess, relatable to our time, because it is kind of steeped in kind of nostalgia for the 50s a little bit. It is very Cold War era, very much so.
Yeah. I mean, the things that have struck me with Ray Bradbury, reading his short fiction, I read Fahrenheit 451. I thought it was okay. But it's very much a school book, isn't it? You read it in school, and you write an essay on it. But Ray Bradbury's short fiction seems to me to be obsessed with ending. Like, things are always kind of dying or winking out, or we're always in the final hour of Ray Bradbury stuff. And sometimes that's literally like apocalypse. And sometimes that's a character's death. And sometimes it's the death of a particular phase of life, like a short story where a kid is exiting their formative years and growing up. But the focus on the death.
Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Being a
all
young
about
person.
that.
Which one?
Something Wicked This Way Comes is all about that. It's about childhood ending and all that.
Yes, I'm really enjoying it. So I think I might need to make a video. I've got the house to myself on Monday, and I think I need to make a Ray Bradbury's Breaking My TBR video, something like that, because I'm just really enjoying him. And yeah, I have all these books I need to read, like Perdido Street Station, and I just keep coming back to Bradbury.
Yeah, I mean, Bradbury's really good. I don't blame you in enjoying Bradbury. Well, he's one of my favorite writers, so I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
But yes,
Are
I
you a
do.
Stephen King fan?
Yes. um, yeah, I am. Yeah. Dark Tower. I was mentioning earlier. I
Yeah.
empathize with Malazan fans now as a Dark Tower fan. Because again, the first book can be a bit of a hard sell for people.
I love book one.
Oh, I know. I enjoy it as well. It's just, I understand how other people, I try to have other people, in account. I try to think of other people when I recommend the Dark Tower.
Yeah. I think book one, I mean, we already spoke about this, didn't we? But it's a complete fever dream of a
Mm-hmm.
book. And it's kind of got a plot, but also 80% of the book isn't really about the plot.
Yeah, it's
I
like
just
80% vibe.
that's how you say it. It's just pure atmosphere. But
Mm-hmm.
oh, what an atmosphere. Um and I think the reason book two is so rewarding is this feverish dream just crash lands in reality. I don't want to spoil book two, but
Mm-hmm.
literally the crash lands in reality in a way that wouldn't have been particularly as rewarding if we hadn't just gotten through 250 pages of dreamscape.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah. I think book one's one of the best in the series, actually. The more I come back to it, the more I'm like, this is a really good little book.
I enjoy it. I'm just saying, I know it'll alienate some people because it's such a
Mm-hmm.
freaking weird book, and it doesn't have a lot of the usual Stephen King isms that you expect from a lot of his books. But I love the Dark Tower because I just love how it freaking goes for it, man. It's like, yeah, let's
Yep,
have
yep.
sentient monorails. Yeah, let's have these weird robot bears running around. It's like,
Yeah.
sure, let's have
Let's
the
have the antagonists with lightsabers. Yeah, why not? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm just like, yeah. And it's like the Order of the Gunslingers is really awesome. It's a great series. That's another one I think is kind of underrated, even though there have been a good amount of YouTubers who've talked about it.
I had a really interesting kind of buddy read experience when I read The Dark Tower. So I was a student in uni, and I've read Song of Ice and Fire, and then I was working at this cafe, this coffee shop, and the manager of the coffee shop, this lady called Debbie, um, who had a bit of a kind of tragic set of life circumstances. Like she'd been widowed twice, and
Oh
she was
man.
running this cafe, and yeah. So we came in, but I told her that I was reading A Song of Ice and Fire, and she said to me, like, you have to read The Dark Tower. You have to read The Dark Tower. And so I said, yeah, okay. So I bought book one, and I worked in this coffee shop for about a year. And I pretty much finished book seven as I wrapped up my year in this coffee shop. And every kind of time we shared a shift, me and Debbie, I just update her on my progress towards the tower. They're here, they're here, they're here. This just happened. And it became, I mean, she didn't read it with me, but I loved having this experience where I'd come in every, it was 3 or 4 times a week I worked in this
Mm-hmm.
coffee shop. Uh, I would come in and she'd be like, "Where are you at?" And I'd be like, "This just happened." She's like, "Oh, just wait." And sharing the joy of reading in that way with other people is just it's magnificent.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
So
thing. Yeah.
yeah, and so she single handedly got me into Stephen King, and since then I've read 50 or 60 of his books,
Oh
and I've
wow.
only not enjoyed about five of them.
Probably more than I have. I've only read, good lord, maybe 30.
Only 30.
Yeah. No, he's the dude's a workhorse. Um, yeah, I mean, he's a brilliant storyteller. He's definitely because I generally put writers in like categories. There's like the storyteller writers who are like the ones who
Mm,
not the most sophisticated prosmith or anything, but man, can they spin a yarn. Then there's like the stylists who are the prosmiths. I mean, they'll tell a story, but like, man, their linguistic ability is out there. And then there's those like weird writers who do both, who can do
yes,
both anyway. Um,
like Steven Erikson.
yeah, that's so funny. I had a friend of mine who said that exact thing because Malazan's his favorite series of all
Yeah,
time.
man
Um,
of taste. I know. I agree with what you're saying. I've always wanted to get a book of academic criticism on Stephen King because I know they exist,
do
and
they?
obviously we people.
I thought academia
Stephen
kind
King talks
of
about.
kind of was like, eh.
Oh well, I mean, when you get to the level of popularity that Stephen King has, academic stuff will be written about him just by
Mhm.
dint of him being huge. Um, but he calls himself the Big Mac of writers, and I know he's being a bit self-deprecatory, but he's I do wonder with King if there is a bit more to discuss there, and then just kind of
Oh, I
just
think there
consuming the
is. I
text.
mean, you read it.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of like thematic weight in that book about
yeah,
community and a lot of people say he's nostalgic. Like my friend Raph, Raph Blue Text, he doesn't really like Stephen King.
yeah.
He thinks he gets too sucked up in the nostalgia. I just kind of shake my head. I'm like, no, no, no. He's sure it is nostalgic, but he's deconstructing that nostalgia because like one of the big themes in a lot of his work is here's this very idyllic time, but here's the evil and like just vileness that's underneath that. I think he's
I mean, how doesn't
he's
was it
almost
not it that
uncanny at
starts
that.
with was it not it that starts with like a gay couple basically getting
That's a
like
little later on,
assaulted or
or
something like
well, I
that?
don't remember where
Is
that's
it?
at in the book. It's been a while since I've read it, but yeah, that does happen. Yes,
Yeah. I mean, my criticisms of King is that he can be quite on the nose. Certainly, I think that's
sure.
totally valid. Obviously, you have the slightly kind of, and it's just true, right? How many of his books start with a young writer from Maine? And
Yeah,
you're
that's
like, come
true.
on.
Yeah.
And one of his characters is called John Smith. Like John Smith. Stephen, how difficult is it? John Smythe. There we go. Changed it for you. Joseph Smythe. Right, there you go. But at the same time, I think his sheer dizzying inventiveness uh, and the career that he has charted for himself from Carrie to I forget the most recent one he's written. Is it Holly or no? There was one just after that. Um, I need to read the Holly Gibney stuff, but I think it would be very interesting to do a critical. Maybe I'll do a YouTube video on it when I can find some time. What the critics, what the academics are saying about King, because I would imagine there's actually more material there than we realize.
Yeah, it's but yeah, I think there is a lot of weight in his work. Now, I mean, like you said, he can be a little on the nose sometimes, but I do think it's definitely there, and he's very good at it. And he's like a less surreal David Lynch in that way, where he likes to kind of
Yeah,
where like he both appreciates the nostalgic bits, but he likes to take the piss out of it as well.
yeah. Did you watch the Dark Tower movie?
Yes, and the less said about it, the better.
I remember when that movie was happening, and Idris Elba was cast as Roland. That was the sticking point. Like, how can and okay, and there's always discourse, right, about when like a character's race changes from an
Uh huh.
adaptation. Um, Idris Elba was the best part of that movie.
Hmm.
He was the only good part about that movie. He crushed it. I would happily have watched a whole series with Idris Elba as Roland. I thought he did a
Hmm.
brilliant job, kind of embodying the character and trying to work with that script. Everything else about that movie was hot garbage. And I remember
They
walking
try
out of
well
the
for
movie
one.
theater.
They
When
tried
was
to
it?
cram
2017.
7 big books into a movie, and you're like, you can't do
Yeah.
that.
But you know what disappointed me is when that movie came out, I walked out of the movie theater. Sometimes you try and persuade yourself it wasn't as bad as it was.
Uh huh.
I walked out going, that was awful. And it upsets me, not because I watched a bad adaptation of The Dark Tower, but now we're going to go through another 10 years of life without getting another Dark Tower movie or sequel or product because this one is just going to flop. And it shouldn't have flopped. Like, Dark Tower is made for adaptation. Obviously, you have to be careful with how you adapt book one because it's a bit of a dreamscape.
Hmm.
But there is no reason you cannot have a solid Dark Tower adaptation, as I believe they're now doing. I could be wrong there.
Yeah,
So
I
hopefully
heard
we
Mike
get something good.
Flanagan is gonna take it on, and hopefully we'll finally get a proper Dark Tower adaptation.
Yeah.
Um,
If it's bad, I will just
yeah,
sob
I'll just
relentlessly.
cry. Yeah, no, it's oh my god, yeah.
Another
It,
10 years. As I said, Glaswegians, we don't have that long.
no, it one of it's kind of funny. It kind of makes me think of when I was reading Gardens of the Moon. I was like, God, how would one adapt this? And also, I heard this was going to
Yes.
be a screenplay at first. I'm like, how the hell were they going to make that into a movie?
I think the script still exists. I wonder if they could. I wonder if Erickson and Esselmont would ever be willing to share it. But yeah, I think Malazan is pretty much unadaptable. But I think it's unadaptable not because of the complexity of the storylines, but because so much of the novel is introspection and philosophizing. And I think if you're going to adapt that story, but take out those internal monologues, that's going to really shave your story down in a way that does a discredit to the source material. I guess going back to having just slaughtered anime about an hour ago, I do wonder if anime is the best way forward,
I was about to
because
say, yeah,
you
like
could
an
you could
animated adaptation, I think could do
yeah
Malazan justice, maybe, but like, I can't comment on
yeah
it. I'm not in love with it yet.
yeah. I think I don't know, because as I've told you, book two is set in an entirely different region from book one.
Hmm.
Imagine with Song of Ice and Fire, if book one was all the Wall, and then book two was all King's Landing, and book three was all Essos. It's kind of like that. Not quite that severe, but that's kind of what it feels like a bit. So how do you do that? If that's what it was like, do you just kind of do a third of each, or do you literally do season one, book one, season two, book two? It's to some extent a doomed endeavor, but that's fine, because I also think the books do not need adaptation in the way that I want a Dark Tower adaptation. Like, I think that would look so good on the screen. I don't feel like the need
Yeah, or
for a
like a
Malazan
first law
adaptation.
adaptation, I think would be really good. You could, I
I
don't
think
know
they're
if you've,
doing Best Served Cold, you know.
yes, they are, and I don't know if you've read Joe Abercrombie at all, but
Yeah,
I've,
yeah, not the Devils, but everything else.
oh, okay, I was like, yeah, well, I'm like, I read those, I'm like, oh, that'd be a great TV show. You can make a 3-season out of that.
I think it's I think they're doing Best Served Cold, and I believe, is her name Rebecca Ferguson? She's in
Yes.
Mission Impossible with
Mm-hmm.
that. She's a great actor. But as soon as I saw that she was the potential um, player of, I forget the name of the character in Best Served Cold, forgive me. Um, I think she's going to be perfect for that role. And talk about deconstruction of a character. Oh my goodness, Best Served Cold, brilliant example of a character seeming one way at first, and by the end of it, you feel a very different way, or much more complicated towards that human being.
Yeah, I kind of I liked Best Served Cold, but I kind of felt that Joe was kind of retreading water a little bit, or is that's not the right term? It's treading water.
Hmm. In
Kind
what
of
way?
just like thematically, the whole first trilogy is about like, oh, this world is so bad, it'll make people worse overall. And I kind of felt like,
Yes,
he kind of just regurgitated it without too much, variation. Just kind of left me
that's interesting.
a little. I felt still a
I
good book
think
though.
I don't disagree with that. I think The Heroes is a better book, and I'm really keen to reread Red Country, because I've heard that one's really good on a reread. I guess for me, with the first Joe Abercrombie trilogy, it's all about these characters almost becoming better people and then falling back into their old ways.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, Best Served Cold is about a character who seems kind of badass and not quite virtuous, but justified.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the book, you realizing that the whole way through, she's actually been pretty vile herself. But because she's the main character, you root for her. I don't know if this is too spoilery. I'm not really spoiling anything,
Not
but I
really,
think it's more
no.
of the fact that as you get to the end of that book, you're like, nothing has changed. It's not like there's been any huge revelation, although there are twists and turns, but it's just like you just think about it in a different light. Like, I think this isn't a spoiler, because everyone calls Best Served Cold Fantasy Kill Bill,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think
She kills
that's
Bill.
right. But at the same time, I think you when you remember all these scenes, you're not replaying them any differently in your head. You're just the weight of the novel makes you realize that you were kind of saying, "Go, character whose name I can't remember. You do the thing," and the talent that Abercrombie has in that book is that you realize that what she's doing is again foul, is vile. So yeah, but it's such a good book, and I actually think those the standalones are the best trilogy in my opinion.
Interesting. I've heard The Heroes is really good. I haven't read it yet. I really
Oh, it's so good. It's
my
so good.
my favorite so far has been Last Argument of Kings. I've been
Yes.
really fascinated with the somewhat polarized response it's gotten. I mean, I can see why that's the case, but I actually think it's a great ending. Like the last 100 pages, I remember just being really just enthralled with the dread that Abercrombie built, and just showing that there is nothing you can do. It's almost like I love how it just turns into like a horror book at the end,
Yes,
as
that's a
you
good way of putting it.
as you realize like there is nothing you can do. Like so you could just watch these
Yeah,
characters,
it's true. I mean, it's also true about the second book, right? I know. Oh my goodness, what's it called? What's it called? The second book.
uh
While they're hanged. While they're hanged.
oh, before they were hanged,
Uh,
yeah.
before they're hanged. This is slightly spoilery, so I'm going to just ramble for 10 seconds while people who are listening might not want to know a slightly spoilery kind of thing. Right, you can skip past 30 seconds. Okay, I'm going to tell you now. Um, while I've already forgotten the name of it. Book 2. Okay, it's midnight here. Forgive me. It's 12. It's 12:20. What that book does is you get to the end and you go, okay, so what was the point of anything the characters did? Like they went to really really far, and they don't have much to show for their labors. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got kind of fed up by the end of book 2. I'm like, well, what's the point of this book? Why did I just spend 600 pages trotting through essentially nothingness and futility? And then I'm like, oh wait, that's kind of the point, isn't it? That although he's very funny, Abercrombie, as you're saying with the ending of the trilogy, does really explore kind of the futility and the hopelessness of change, which is very harrowing and bleak for a man who enjoys his kind of wry, sarcastic British humor. But I think that's why he's such a successful writer, is that he can marry this very bleak, pessimistic tone with just an incredible story and really solid, entertaining writing. But if
Yeah.
you actually think about what Abercrombie's saying under the surface, it's pretty darn could give someone a crisis.
Well, yeah, it kind of reminds me of The Wire a little bit. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but it's very much like the system is, the system's a corrupt mess that actively screws over people who are trying to change it. Because that's ultimately what's
Yes.
insidious about Baez's ultimate, what he does is he's created a system that is so efficiently corrupt that nobody can stand against
Yes.
it.
Do you know what? Sorry, I just had to check something there. You're totally right. And if you do read the Heroes, a lot of what goes on in the final pages of the Heroes really does echo what you're saying, without spoiling anything for yourself. The Heroes is one of my favorite fantasy books. Certainly, probably my favorite standalone fantasy. It's phenomenal. The Heroes. There's a scene that I can pretty much recall, and it's like 25 pages long, and it's so well written. I can pretty much replay it beat by beat for you. Although I read it like 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's a I haven't read the Heroes, so I mean, I'm not gonna, I won't
But you
comment.
should.
You know
But
what?
you should.
I've been, I'm probably gonna take a break from epic fantasy after I read Guards of the Moon. So I'm thinking I'm gonna probably catch up on some standalones. I'll see if I can fit the Heroes in, um, uh, during that period, but we'll see. Thinking about trying the
What
Devils
else?
before the end of the year, because
Yeah, me too. The
because
Devils is
I
on my
kind of
list.
want to see where I'll land, because I've heard it has a very polarized response.
I've heard he kicks the humor into paragraph by paragraph level. Like it reads like Hitchhiker's Guide, where there's a joke on every line.
Mm.
So I can see why, if people are coming in looking for, whichever, a little hatred, and
Yeah,
and
like the like
they get
introspection
Hitchhiker's Guide.
of.
Yeah, yeah. So what else? What else is? I'll probably have to head to bed soon, mate. But what else is on your TBR before we part ways?
Oh yeah, I was about to say. I know you said you had about an hour and a half, and we've gone over. I've really enjoyed this conversation, but
Yeah, me as well. Yeah,
stuff I'm
I'm
hoping to
I'm
read.
regretting.
I'm kind of just
On you go.
I'm kind of just floating. I'm kind of just floating around, sort of doing buddy reads. But I'm hoping to start a brief history of 7 Killings this evening.
Yeah, you mentioned, yeah.
Which is also by Marlon James, by the way. You know what? When I get off here, I'll send you here's some stuff you should read. I think you would like, and go
Do
nuts.
please.
Uh, um, I'm hoping to read Pale Fire before the end of the year, because Lolita is one of my favorite books, and I'm like, I need to try another Nabokov before I leave this earthly coil. So let's go with Pale Fire. There's a couple other ones I'm hoping to get to, I'm hoping to read The Big Nowhere by James Elroy before too long. And there's also some other books I'm hoping to get to. There's also some comics I'm hoping to get to as well, because I do that as
Sounds
well.
like you've got a tidy amount of work ahead of you.
It's kind of nice actually, because I don't have anything like specific that I must read. Well, there's 2 books really that are kind of like ones I want to get to before the year's over. But aside from that, like it's mostly free. I can just kind of read what I want. It feels pretty good actually.
Yeah. I, a few months ago, fell into the new booktuber trap of embroiling myself in like 10 different buddy reads. And the dust has settled. The dust. Well,
I've been
you get
trying to do more.
enthusiastic.
I've been
Like,
trying to
I
do
want to
more
read this. I
buddy
want to read
reads,
this.
but like my taste is so off kilter. Like a lot of people are like, "What the hell?" Like, oh, okay, but
That's good. That's what BookTube needs. BookTube needs off-kilter
I did
taste.
join the Lonesome Dove read along last year, and I had a blast with it. Lonesome Dove's a great book, but
Yeah, I love Lonesome Dove. I have book 2 upstairs. So looking forward to that.
yeah, no, I'll ask you before you leave. What are some books you're hoping to get to before the end of the year?
So
Well, you made a
I've
video
just
on
started
this,
by
but like,
Blood
what are
by
some
Salt.
ones that you're like, oh man, I'm biting at the nips?
Yeah. By Blood by Salt is what I'm reading right now. I do want to get to Perdido Street Station. I want to read the sequel to Lonesome Dove. I want to read Discovery by the Mintons. I want to read another K.E. Andrews novel. I don't know if you've read Hills of Heather and Bone, but I'm really keen
I've
to
seen
explore
interviews with
another
her.
one of her
I've
work.
seen interviews with her.
Yeah.
She seems like a nice
Have
person.
you seen my interview with her?
You know
That's the
what?
most
I
important
will.
one.
You know what? After I get off of here and I take a nap, I'm gonna.
You don't have to. She's fabulous. And I really enjoyed how unusual Hills of Heather and Bone was. Lots of stuff. But I think my main goal for the end of this year is to wrap up R. Scott Baker.
Good luck. I heard he can be dense.
Yeah, but I've got 3 books to go, so it's not impossible. But hey, thanks so much for having me on, and
This has
it's been really
fun.
nice
I've
connecting with you
enjoyed
properly.
this.
I know that we've talked to each other via comments and things like that, but it's always nice to. I always say face to face, not quite face to face, but something close to face to face.
It's like that Star
Screen
Trek.
to screen.
It's like the Star Trek. Yeah, I always think of Star Trek when they talk to each other on the screens. I'm like, man, they were really on to something.
What we've produced here, my friends, what we've produced here is better than the new War of the Worlds movie because there's 2 of us, so it's fine.
Oh Lord, I saw a clip from the trailer. I'm like, is this real? Oh,
It
what are
looks
you
like an
doing to my
adult film
boy,
parody
H.G.
without
Wells?
any of the naughty stuff. Yeah.
Anyway, but
Yeah. Right.
David, it's been a pleasure finally getting to talk with
Appreciate
you.
you,
So,
man.
I've seen your videos. I'm like, this guy has the sauce. I'm gonna love this man. And
Appreciate it.
And I'm like, and I was not disappointed. But as I like to do before the end of these things, if you have any social media, feel free to share it.
I have only my YouTube channel. Oh no, I have an Instagram. I just forget my Instagram. So 4 corners of the
That's
page
how we communicate.
is my YouTube channel. I know. Well, I use it for messaging, but I used to do weekly updates on my reading, and that's just totally fallen by the wayside. But maybe I'll bring that back. So Instagram, 4 corners of the page. YouTube channel, 4 corners of the page. You can email me if you like, but I go for the main 2. Carrier pigeon.
Fair enough. Well, you have a good rest. I am also probably going to take a nap and then carry on with my day.
Yes.
But until next time, hope you guys enjoyed this. I know I did. But yeah, until next time. See you guys later. Bye-bye.